Hey guys, what's up? It's Greg Srisavasdi with CinemAddicts. Minnesota Mean, director Don Mikkelson, and director Brian Skiba, the filmmaker behind Clear Cut. These are the interviews that Eric Holmes has for this installment of CinemAddicts. Minnesota Mean was done a couple weeks ago, so I'm a little bit late on posting this interview for our feed. Runs 81 minutes, and this is a huge recommendation from Eric Holmes. He gave it 5 stars. I will leave a Prime Video link, an Amazon link for you guys to if you click onto it and you rent and purchase it, we get a slight commission over at CinemAddicts. But yeah, Eric Holmes gave this documentary 5 stars, and it, quote, centers on the lives of 6 members of the Minnesota Roller Derby as they compete to win the Hydra. Looks very interesting, and I trust Eric. I trust Eric with his reviews, and it was a very illuminating and cool interview with Don Mikkelson. He is a fan of her work. He interviewed her about less than a year ago for another film called Finding Her Beat. That's another documentary she shot, and I'll leave a link for that as well. At the end of the interview, he said it'd be a good idea if people would watch Minnesota Mean and Finding Her Beat as double features. So hopefully, yeah, listen to Eric, see what and tell us what you think of either Finding Her Beat and, actually more importantly, because it just came out right now, Minnesota Mean. All right, so I have to get to watching both those movies. I am late on the Eric Holmes train on the appreciation for Don Mikkelson. Now, speaking of appreciation, I love Brian Skiba. I'm trying to think of the movies that he's directed. I should look at IMDb right now. I think he directed a movie called The Second Pursuit. He also did recently, about a year ago, a Western called Dead Man's Hand, underrated Western starring Stephen Dorff, Cole Hauser, and Jack Kilmer. Really loved that film. I really love this movie called Clear Cut, which it's billed as an action mystery thriller. It runs at 89 minutes. It's available on digital right now for rental and purchase. And yeah, Eric and I diverge on this movie. Eric said in the review, if you listen to the CinemAddicts, this is a movie that you can enjoy if you have a couple of beers in you. I think this is a movie you can enjoy if you're sober, or not even buzzed. Has a really good cast. Alec Baldwin, Stephen Dorff again works with Skiba, and it also stars Clive Stanton, who I really liked on this short-lived TV series. I believe it was called Taken. Clive Stanton is a really good leading man, and would love to see him in more movies as the lead. And he's front and center in this film about a guy it starts off, he wants a job as a logger, and he gets hired by this guy played by Alec Baldwin, and they're somewhere in the Pacific Northwest. They're starting their job cutting trees down, and this character played by Clive Stanton, he ventures off to a section where people are, it's a meth lab out in the middle of nowhere, and he invades their space. And then by invading their space, Clive Stanton's character is on the run because he steals a bag of money from them, and these guys are not very good guys. They're played by Tom Welling, and also who's Lachlan Monroe, Jesse Metcalfe, and an actress. I'm going to try to find her name right now. The actress, she's good in this as well. So a lot of the movie is him being chased by these cutthroats, these criminals. And then what's interesting is part of the narrative also deals in flashbacks. So you understand who this mysterious guy, who Clive Stanton, he plays this guy named Jack. What is Jack's backstory? Why did he invade this meth lab out in the middle of nowhere? What are his intentions? So yeah, there's Jesse Metcalfe, Lachlan Monroe is the bad guys. I believe the other bad person is Lucy Martin. I'm guessing on that, Lucy Martin, because it's set in the Pacific Northwest. I don't know specifically where Skiba shot this movie, but there are some really nice, beautiful nature elements. Parts of the movie, it's a survivalist thriller because Jack gets injured while being chased, and he has to figure out a way to outwit and outnavigate the people who are after him. Stephen Dorff plays a local authority, sort of park ranger, who makes sure everyone in the forest area are doing okay, and he's sort of oversees the whole area. And yeah, who else is in this? Yeah, Tom Welling from Smallville. He plays one of the toughs in the film. Lachlan Monroe is very, very good as well. He has some scene-stealing scenes in this film. So I would give Clear Cut 3.5 out of 5 stars, possibly even 4. You know what? I'm gonna give Clear Cut 4 stars because this is a movie, if it hits Blu-ray or DVD, even a DVD, I'm going to purchase it on DVD. It's one of these movies that I'm going to watch over and over again. The way that Skiba does the flashbacks might be jarring for some. Eric was mentioning that it was a little bit jarring for him in his review of Clear Cut. He gave Clear Cut 2.5 out of 5. Again, I'm giving it 4 out of 5. He thought the cuts to the flashback were a little bit jarring, or was wondering about the editing choices. I love the editing choices because you get to see actually a whole different story. The flashbacks are in and of itself a whole different movie than Clear Cut, and eventually they converge towards the end when you really figure out what the heck is going on. And I think it really works well. I really enjoy this. This is an upscale. I even preferred it over Dead Man's Hand, which I really enjoyed as well. So this is, I think, so far my favorite film from Brian Skiba. And I've only seen the second Pursuit, and let me look at some more of his stuff because he's done. How many credits he has? He has 41 credits. And sorry, I'm blabbering right now. Pursuit, I saw that came out in 2022. I think it stars John Cusack and Emile Hirsch, if I recall. And the second with Ryan Phillippe. I think it's Ryan Phillippe, and who is the antagonist in this movie? He was really good in it. Let me look right now. Sorry, guys. Casper Van Dien. So I really love his movies, Brian Skiba. He's a genre filmmaker, but he also subverts the genre a little bit with some really cool twists. And as he says it in his interview with Eric Holmes, that he's just really attracted to good storytelling. And I think with the budget that he's given, he makes some really good genre films within that confined space of budgeting. And it'd be interesting to see what he would do with a whole lot of money. But even with not a whole lot of money, I really enjoy his movies. And my 4 stars is a selfish 4 stars for me because I'm a Skiba fan. But a lot of critics and a lot of people, it might not be for them. So for example, Clear Cut on Rotten Tomatoes currently has 0%. Okay, that's not, in my opinion, that's not absolutely not fair. But again, on the flip side, my 4-star rating of Clear Cut might not be fair to you guys too, because I'm a huge biased Brian Skiba fan. So I don't know where you guys are gonna stand on it. Just listen to the interview with Skiba. Maybe that will sway you towards purchasing or renting, or maybe not, Clear Cut, and maybe looking into his body of work. So if you like these type of movies where you have A-list actors within a indie budget trying to do their best and enhance the storyline and escapist fare for you, the cinephile, I think you're going to enjoy Clear Cut. The ending sequence where there's a showdown between the main characters in this movie is really well done as well. It's really cool to watch. But yeah, I'm really excited to see what Skiba's doing next. I think he has a long-running relationship with, at least starting with the last couple of years, with Stephen Dorff, because Stephen Dorff was in Dead Man's Hand. He's in Clear Cut, and he's in another Skiba film called The Gunslingers, which is currently, it's in post-production, comes out 2025. And I believe Nicolas Cage, Stephen Dorff, and Heather Graham is in it. Let me click from yes. Nicolas Cage, Heather Graham, Stephen Dorff are in The Gunslingers. So anyways, here, I'm blabbering too much. I apologize. Here, first up is the interview with Don Mikkelson from Minnesota Mean. Eventually, I'm going to get to that and follow up with that on my feelings on the documentary. Then I definitely have to see Finding Her Beat. And then to wrap up the segment is Eric's interview with Brian Skiba for Clear Cut. All right, guys, thanks again for supporting us on CinemAddicts, and check out these interviews. Bye.
I'm here with Don Mikkelson, the director of Minnesota Mean and Finding Your Beat. We got to talk a couple months ago about that, and there's a lot of crossover between the two. It's you're following this gang of ragtag, so to speak, and then you get to fall in love with them and then watch them do their thing. And
there's a theme there.
Yeah, well, this one's got kind of a rocky feel, because I think one of the themes throughout this documentary is they have their own way of winning. It's not about winning the championship or the game or whatever. It's about, did we have fun? Did we make friends along the way? Did we work together as a team? And that was a really, really sweet and inspiring kind of message throughout.
Oh, I'm glad you like that. I did too.
What brought you on to what brought you onto this? Because with with the documentary, you got to kind of have a hook. But with
Mhm.
something like this, it's like I don't know what the hook's going to be yet. We'll just have to shoot and find out.
Well, I think that I fell in love with Derby when my friend Lisa started playing it. And so, I knew this community and I knew how fun those characters were, how fun these players are, and that whatever they did over the course of that year would be amazing because it always is. I also knew that this season in particular was going to be a big one for them because a lot of their key players, this was their last season. And so there was kind of I want to go out on top. I want to do, the best I've ever done. And, maybe we'll win the Hydra this year. Something that they've never won, but they've gotten close many times. So, and the Hydra is the international award for Derby, or a top prize. So,
Hail Hydra.
yes. So it was a combination of those things, and frankly, it was just the year the team were like, all right, let's do it. And I said, okay, here we go. And they embraced our team fully, and I felt like a member of the Minnesota Mean, even though I will never skate.
Yeah. I I guess the only issue I had with this documentary is that I wish there were more of them. I love the whole idea of getting to know the team and then doing kind of like a almost like a highlight reel of their season. And the Minnesota team was great, but it in just roller derby in general is fun to watch live. I would never want to play because it looks like it would hurt, but
Mhm.
it would be great to like go like follow another team and get to know them and watch their journey and like I don't know, maybe 30 for 30 or something like that. It's like every month we'll do a new roller derby team.
I completely agree with you. I'm actually pitching a series on Derby with 4 teams connected to it. We shall see what happens. I have dreams,
But
because each team has a very different flavor. You've got Minnesota with the hockey and all that connection. You've got Atlanta where it's hot, and it's just a different makeup of the team. There's many more Black players in Atlanta, and they have their own stories. Portland, Oregon's number 1 in the world, so they've got a lot of pressure to keep that. So there's all sorts of different stories. You got LA, who over COVID lost their venue, so now where are they going to practice? In parking lots, maybe. I don't know. Like there's always a challenge in a sport like this where it is volunteer run for the most part. Very few teams have paid staff. Minnesota does not have paid staff. It is all volunteers. So anything could happen and usually does. And that was, the case in this story. I mean, as you watch the film, there are things that we couldn't have foreseen coming. And when they did, it was like, well, that is life. And that'll make for an interesting story.
yeah. Also, like roller derby is such a great game.
Mhm.
The idea is so simple, but it like there's a lot of strategy to it. And another fun thing about roller derby is kind of like the kind of punk rock mentality, not least of which is the names they always come up with them for themselves. Not
Yeah.
just in this, but just in roller derby by and large. I wrote a couple of my favorites: Smokahontas, Shiver Me Kimbers,
Mhm.
Crust Almighty, and probably the best one, Tanya Sharding. What are kind of some of the fun roller derby names you've come across?
Oh man, there's just so many. I have to say, Tanya Sharding was right up there. That was one of those. That player I'm sure saw in the film, changed her name a number of times. Basically, every tournament she changed her name. Most people keep a name for the duration of their career, or at least a season. Um, but she was being creative with the naming process, and I appreciated that. And actually, I ended up doing a crowdfunding campaign for this just to get our crew to Philly. And one of the things I offered was a derby name to people who gave at a certain level, and that was not a great idea because I am not a good person to create derby names. It turns out that is not my strength. But it was fun, and it was fun to see how many people wanted their own derby names. And so I apologized when I gave them to him. I'm like, I tried. All I said was I'd try. So there's some pretty lame derby names out there. But yeah, I mean, Gertrude Stein is great. It's like this name that comes from English literature and it's just playful. I love them.
Yeah. What were some of the names you gave out for that?
Oh my God, I don't even remember. I would have to go back and find that Excel spreadsheet. I'm just so embarrassed by them. Really, it was embarrassing. It was probably based on the person's name.
So when you're putting this together, like typically in documentaries, you usually have like a little maybe threads or whatever that just either for one reason or another doesn't work for the documentary. What are some of those that maybe didn't make the cut that were still interesting but just didn't quite fit within the documentary?
Well, I would say there were things that we didn't shoot, and we didn't shoot them because the players were they didn't want that part of their lives exposed. And I had to honor that. When you're filming with a team, not everybody on the team wants their story told. I mean, the odds of finding that are pretty low because they're there to play a sport, not to be on a show. So there were a few storylines that I learned over the year that I was like, oh, but I knew that player would never go there. I will say that I added Diamond Gruff and Chad, her spouse Chad, at the end of the film. I didn't start filming with them. And it became clear as I started going through our footage of the games and behind the scenes that they were a force to be reckoned with, both as individuals and as a team, as a married couple. And so they end up playing a role in the film that appeared late in production. And I'm so glad they were willing to jump on board because they're pretty great.
Do you ever, because when you're doing documentaries, you're dealing with real stories of real people. What are some kind of like, have you ever come across, maybe not in this, but like past documentaries, have you ever come across any ethical dilemmas where you're sitting at home going like, do I do this? Do I not? Is this fair? Is this not? Like, do you ever beat yourself up or like just pine over certain things?
Oh, all the time. I mean, actually, my side gig, well, it's not a gig and I'm not paid for it, but I'm a member of the Documentary Producers Alliance and I'm on the ethics committee. And it's because those things just like I'm fascinated as well as confounded by the ethical dilemmas that come up in documentary, particularly as it relates to conveying the life story of somebody who, may not be ever seen in the media again. And it's a huge responsibility. You can be like, I'm going to present your story to millions of people. So, that has been a tough thing. And there've been a handful of times where I've chosen not to film something because I knew that person didn't want that part of their life exposed. And I was within my legal rights to show that because I'd already signed a release form and it was on camera. But, the responsibility and the partnership I have with people in my projects, I don't want to do exposés. So, I mean, there are ethical dilemmas every day in this field. I mean, I had one film that I was following somebody who was Aboriginal from Australia, and he passed away during production. And his family decided that there are beliefs in their culture about saying the name and seeing the image of a person who has passed. And they wanted to honor those. And so they didn't want his face or name, which, takes him out of a film. And legally, I could have still kept him in there. But I was like, no, we're not doing that. This is his family's legacy. And if this is how they want that to be handled, then that's how we'll handle it. And it was heartbreaking as a filmmaker to have this beautiful story and be like, oh, never mind.
Yeah. I like what you say about like the release form. It's like, yeah, like technically you can do it, but
yeah,
are you going to be able to sleep at night?
Right. Exactly.
And some people sleep like babies, and it's infuriating to think about.
Yeah, that's a different part of this field than I'm in. But yeah.
But so like what kind of brings you onto documentaries in general? Just like what's the secret sauce is like, ooh, this is gonna be something I want to follow around for a couple of years.
I think in general, I love that you don't know where it's heading. Like my co-director in Finding Her Beat often says it's a what is it, a one-way ticket to an unknown destination, a very expensive ticket. But you're going to get on that ride and something's going to happen. And there's something, I like the organic nature of documentary. I like the fact that these stories bubble up and they're stories that I would never have thought of. I couldn't have written Brickyard's story. I couldn't have written Shiver Me Kimber's story. None of them I could have written the way they played out, and they're way better than I could have imagined. But I will say that the films that I'm drawn to make tend to be about people who I just want to spend time with, who I think are amazing, who I can't sleep at night because I'm thinking about them and I'm thinking about like what makes them tick. And I wish more people could see this person because they're amazing. I don't do films generally that are, back to the expose thing. That's not the films I do. The films I do are compelling people that you might not otherwise know. And I think there's some inspiration there too, in that we don't know these people. This could be anybody. This could be you. You could live this way. You could join roller derby. It kind of gives you permission to be a bigger version of yourself and a better version of yourself. So I don't know. And currently I'm really drawn to stories of powerful women. Although I find that as I'm looking at the posters in my office, that most of the films had that component, whether I was aware of it or not.
Yeah.
So
it works. Keep doing it.
Well, thank you.
I also want to point out you have during the credits you have a dedication to your DP Jim Tuttle, who passed away. What can you tell us about Jim? Because it's always sad to lose one of the team.
Yeah, and Jim was a huge part of this film. He was one of the first people to believe in this story and to come on board. Our first trip to Oregon, it was just me and Jim. So he really jumped on board very quickly, and his vision for how it should be shot and all that was spot on. And it's amazing that he was given the access he was from this team of women. He was a gentleman in, I want to say, his 50s at the time that we were filming this. So it's a very different demographic. But he had a sensitivity that was lovely. And so he passed the summer of 2020, and we were, I would say, midway through polishing the edit at that point. So we weren't at fine cut yet, but he did see a draft of the film and liked it. And when the film premiered, we had a celebration of him and his career with his colleagues, because, when he passed, it was COVID and nobody could get together. And so we were able to celebrate him last spring when this film premiered, which felt pretty great, because this was the last film he shot. So yeah, it's pretty meaningful.
Yeah. Well, that's a pretty sweet story. So
yeah,
thanks for that. You seem to be really good at that, bringing the sweetness.
I can't help myself. It's a Minnesota thing, maybe. I don't know.
Well, I guess final question. We had a What's in the Box segment. We're kind of reformatting that, so to speak, but I still want to get a movie from you, a recommendation that's like something that's personal to you, or something that's like really good and no one talks about.
Oh man, this is tough. And now I'm nervous that I already said what I want to say. I don't remember, because did I answer this one before?
No, I
Okay.
checked the previous one. I'm like, I'm pretty sure she got but no.
Before that. Okay. So I would say Jesus Camp. It's a documentary that came out 10, 15 years ago. And it's following a bunch of kids at a Pentecostal Christian camp somewhere in the Midwest. I'm not sure where exactly. But what I love about that film is that it is, I was raised as a fundamentalist Christian, so I understand that community. And I understand kind of the pain that can happen as a kid in that community. And so it was very personal for me. But what was also cool was that audiences who were very liberal, atheist, whatever, they liked the film because it was like inside a community they'd never seen before. And the people who were in the film liked the film because they felt it represented them accurately. And to have that the breadth of audience that film had, and everybody liked it. Everybody thought it was truthful and didn't pull any punches. Like it was just, to this day, I think about that film and think of what they accomplished. Because I think particularly in a divisive time like the one we're in, that's pretty rare. It's pretty rare to get something that everybody is on board with and that it's not schmaltzy. It was a very real, raw story. And so, yeah, hats off to Jesus Camp's directors and producers.
Oh, that's a great pick. Don, thanks for joining me. And everyone else, Minnesota Mean is available now. You can rent it online. And you know what? Rent that, then rent Finding Her Beat, double feature that. Because
do it.
Yeah, they're both incredible. Like watching indie movies, there's a bunch of bummers. And there's some sad stuff in this, but for the most part, these movies are pretty uplifting, and it's a nice palate cleanser. So thank you for that.
I'm down with a happy doc these days. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Don. Is that Brian Skiba or Skiba?
Skiba, yeah, Skiba.
Okay, all right. And this is also a silly question: is it cold deck or clear cut?
It's clear cut. It used to be cold deck, but
Okay.
It'll be in theaters and everywhere else under the name Clear Cut. We're going to try to get IMDb to fix the name today.
Okay, cool. Well, I'm here with Brian Skiba, the director of Clear Cut. Brian, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Well, I'm looking through your IMDb, and you're quite prolific. And I gotta say, I'm a little jealous. You just get to do this all day, every day. What's it like being a filmmaker? It's like a lot of filmmakers, like they'll take 5 years for a project or whatever, and then there's certain ones like yourself that they can you just keep working and keep doing it, which seems the funner route, I think.
Yeah, no, I mean it's a lot of fun. It's funny because I think sometimes I look at the guys that get 5 years for one project and I'm like, man, that would be kind of nice. But at the same point, it's like, man, that would seem like a lot of slow downtime. It's a give and take, right? I mean, it's like I get asked to direct a lot of projects that are taking off very quickly. And so I don't always get the same amount of prep. The budgets aren't necessarily sky high, and so it's like, there's a give and take. And so I think the best way I approach it is that ultimately at the end of the day, I'm just a filmmaker. I love making films. I love telling stories and that's where I'm at. I think there's a community that's about the perception and the look. I've got to play the part of a Hollywood filmmaker, and I only do certain projects with certain people. And it's like I just want to tell great stories and be on set and film. So
What's the business end of that? Like, because again, like making movies not cheap, but they keep asking to come back again and again and again. So you got to be pretty successful at what you do.
Yeah, no, I mean it's definitely it's a cheat. There's always a point of diminishing returns on movies, and so you got to take a script and go, okay, can I make this look good, feel like it's a certain level that's going to perform at a certain level for the budget that they're providing me, and that's the trick. I mean, that's really the trick is being able to look at a script and say, okay, I can make this for what I'm being provided. Because if you get in over your head and you don't have much money, but you're going to go try to make some huge sci-fi piece with all these visual effects, it's just not going to happen, and it's going to look cheap or it's just not going to even get finished. So.
With some tools you picked up along the way, just kind of what you're describing there, that like you would know not to do now, but you would absolutely done as a younger filmmaker.
Exactly that. I mean, I've got the sci-fi movie that's sitting on my shelf for 10 years that never had the budget to pay for all the visual effects. We shot it and it's a cool little flick, but and I think I'm finally to the point where it's like, okay, I can finish this thing. But yeah, I mean, I've got that, early film that I shot with big aspirations and no money behind it. And learned my lesson that sometimes you got to live within your means. So,
What are some I guess what genre or movies do you like to make most out of all of them? And does that line up with your personal taste in movies you like to watch?
yeah, I think so. I mean, my personal, it's kind of funny because I guess you can see it in my filmmaking because the movies I watch are definitely, it's not like I seek out one genre. I love kind of the slapsticky kind of campy comedies, and then I love straight action, and then great sci-fi. Those are my three that, like, if I was going to go pick a film right now, I'd go watch Dune 2 and then try to find some silly, comedy. I mean, that's kind of my tastes, and so I think that's why it's like I have a pretty broad scope of films in my repertoire. So
Yeah. I mean, just mentioning Dune 2, is there any sort of like a franchise or like a maybe book adaptation or something that's like the white, what do they call it, the white horse or unicorn, or like that's the dream. If I had like billions of dollars, I would want to do this thing right here.
I mean, right now, I'd love to actually go remake Starship Troopers. I mean, I mean, I think it's due. I'm very close with a lot of that cast. I know a lot of them. We've all talked about it a lot, and I think that's if I could walk in Sony right now and be like, I have the money, I have the script, I have the cast, let's go. I would do it. I have the cast and we have some ideas, but we've not gotten anywhere with it yet. So
Got about $46 in my pocket. Tell me where to send it. I will watch that.
yeah.
But I guess we'll end with this. What we have what's in the box segment. Well, we had a what's in the box segment. It's rebranded, but anyway, I'm messing this all up. But either way, the whole point is put a movie, do a recommend of a movie that's either really personal to you or a movie that's like this movie's really good and no one ever talks about it.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, like, I don't know why, but my personal, like, one of my personal favorites movies of all time is Big Trouble in Little China. And I don't think today's generation has viewed it or appreciate it. I mean, I think it's one of Carpenter's best films. I mean, you can say Halloween, you can say The Thing, but Big Trouble in Little China is just so much fun. I mean, it's that perfect mix of comedic action, great character with Kurt Russell. I mean, it's just like, and it's like this perfect, he if you were to teach a screenwriting class, I'd probably pull that script out and be like, here's how you structure, a great story, because it really just hits all the beats just right. Damsel in distress, big larger than life hero, those kind of things. And so, yeah, man, I mean, I love that film. So,
All right. Well, Brian, thanks for joining me, and everyone, go check out Clear Cut July 19th. And yeah, again, thanks for joining me.
yeah, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.